So the first person I'm going to come to is Lois Norman, who can tell us a little bit about her film Inside. Lois, what inspired you to make this film?
Love, probably. That normally is my inspiration for most things. And I sadly lost my 95-year-old dad, and I was invited to participate in a film around COVID and being, locked down, that kind of thing. And I just realized that despite when someone leaves us, there is this sort of legacy of love that lives in us and all around us. And so it's about being inside, but about how the love keeps going even after someone's gone.
And how difficult or how much of a challenge did you find that, because you'd obviously lost somebody so dear to you at a time when we were all so separate and all so disparate? So how challenging was that for you to make this film?
It's funny, I just started writing it, and it's only 2 minutes, and I didn't edit any of it, which is really unusual. And I just my father was in the war, and he was a decoder at Bletchley Park, among other things. And I was trying to find a visual to go with it. And every night for a month on my wall in my bedroom, there were these flashes of light that looked like code almost. After a month, they disappeared. I couldn't capture them with the camera. They wouldn't pick it up at all, which I thought was interesting. And so Gemma, who made the film with me, did the visual effect. And I think I say, each night is lit by the brilliance of your life and love, a code to decipher on my wall. And that's kind of how I feel, really, that, as someone leaves, you realize that all the things that you hoped they liked about you or you liked about them were there all along. And each was thinking the other held the secret, when actually you had it all the time.
It's absolutely beautiful, thank you. And that very much comes across. It's very much poetry in motion. So I know that people are absolutely going to love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's great. So the next person I'm going to come to is Lou Sumray, and your excellent animation takeaway. So quite a powerful subject, and what made you decide to go with that?
Well, it didn't really, I don't think it started off as, that wasn't the subject to start off with. It kind of was a very organic process. So it's a bit overused word, but I guess I had an idea I've carried an idea in my head for years, from watching a video, a David Attenborough type video of a bowerbird who collected blue things and decorated its bower, the male bowerbird decorated bower to attract the female. And I kind of loved the idea where the detritus that we make gets incorporated into nature. So in a way, the fact that it turned into a kind of more environmental film about how we throw away plastic and it just gets discarded didn't start off like that. It was almost like I was in awe of the kind of plastic because it became something a bit more beautiful. And then as I made the film, I kept seeing the plastic everywhere, and I got angrier and angrier and more involved. So yeah, and the musician that I worked with, we worked in the same way. We collected, it kind of, we worked together in a kind of non-storyboard way. So she collects little bits and we'd gather, and it ended up in an environmental issue, I guess, among other things.
Yeah, and that comes across, and what I found particularly powerful was these blue, jagged, obviously distressing in that sort of situation, the fact that something beautiful was being made and being regenerated even from something that a lot of people would just consider to be worthless. So well done on that one. Thank you so much for that. So the next person I'm going to come to is Jeanette Rook, who's made an astounding film, 1,000 Days. I have to say this, I found this an incredibly moving, very a hard to watch film. As a mother myself, I found it incredibly difficult. How did you find the strength to make this film?
The film was a long time in the making. It took us nearly 3 years to make the film. I thought I sort of had a relatively sound set of armour that I could possibly wear. And actually, it was the most challenging project. Sangeeta is a remarkable woman. She's a remarkable, as is evident. You don't need me to say that if you've watched the film. She's a remarkable woman. But what's interesting, you know, I was doing a project out at the Maudsley, which is the mental health hospital, with psychiatrists and patients, looking at power dynamics, and the patients became the psychiatrists and the psychiatrists became the patients. It was an extraordinary thing. And we did a play, and she was in the audience. And she came to me afterwards and she asked me about making a film about her son. And I think in her mind, initially, it was a film about her son, a tribute film about her son, which would have been a beautiful thing. But that's not what this film is. But she didn't want to be in the film. So that was a whole conversation to be had about what I thought this film was, which was, it does honour Saga. It isn't that film that she first had in mind.
The whole thing is astounding, with Mum, but also all the friends. That complete sense of loss and bewilderment very much came across. How did you meet that particular challenge with those young people?
With just a great deal of love and openness and willingness to be present, really. What I'm struggling to say is that I'm very good at listening to people. I'm just very good at sitting and having people feel comfortable enough to talk to me. And for some reason, I don't want to say that, because it sounds like, I don't know, yeah. I've done a lot of work like that with people that are socially excluded and don't have a voice. So we work to give voice to the voiceless. And so to be able to sit with these remarkable young adults was just something that we did. We just sat and then we let it unfold. Because I'm a great believer also that the film will tell you what it is. But I think if you sit with it long enough, the film will come to you. And I think that's what happened in this film.
I very much agree. I think it did. It was, I started off thinking that it was going to be about this woman particularly, and then her son, and then the other people. And you're right, it did give a voice to people that we don't often actually have the opportunity to encourage.
That is the essence of the film. If you can be anything, be kind. That's the thread of the film.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So we're going to go to Cheri and Miss Alma Thomas. Great subject, astounding woman. How on earth did you manage to shortlist the incredible achievements of Miss Alma Thomas?
Yeah, well, that was quite a challenge. And how the film came to be is I was approached out of the blue by a curator, two curators and a producer who said, we're putting together this traveling museum exhibition of her work, and we'd like a film to accompany it. Would you be willing to direct it? And I had never heard of her, and they had a link to her Wikipedia page. And when I read her life, I mean, within seconds, I was madly in love with her because her story is so interesting. Her work is so beautiful. It's abstract, but it's accessible. And then, you know, we were in a pandemic, and her story is very based in Washington, D.C. She is no longer alive. She lived 1891 to 1978. So there was no artist to interview, which is where I would usually start. And so it was an interesting process of putting together a list of scholars and the curators and various people to interview, and especially finding anyone alive who had known her. And there was one artist that had known her, and then he backed out at the last minute, and the only living relative was her grandnephew, who is himself in his 60s, I believe. So It was, and you know, one of the amazing things is this entire film was made remotely. So I'm in Los Angeles. It was completely filmed in Washington, D.C. And I have never been in the same room with a single person who worked on this film. I've never met the producer. I've never met the curators, none of the scholars, none of the interview subjects, the cinematographer. I mean, mind blowing that I could make a film sitting in this very desk that I'm talking to you from right now. But it was, I mean, that in itself was an incredible lesson, you know, to realize that we can do amazing things remotely. So even directing Alfre Woodard, the amazing actress who played the voice of Alma Thomas,
which was beautiful. She just caught the tone.
Oh,
straight
I know. When she first spoke as her, I just got chills, and so did all of us. I mean, we were just like, oh, it was like this voice, you know, from the dead or out of time. Yeah.
So do you think that because her life was so extraordinary and it encompassed global interest and encouraged people from every possible type of background, you know, didn't matter whether they were black, white, sky blue, pink, it didn't make any difference at all. But she brought all these different people together. Do you think that could have been like a little, just with your film, being everybody all so separate and yet coming together to make a film that looks as if you were all together, that looks as if there was a whole bunch of you all traveling around together, all sitting, having a conversation and celebrating this woman's work. So do you think it might be a bit of a tribute in itself that it came together that way?
I think that's a lovely way to think of it, because she did really live a life of service and helped a lot of people. And you know, she had been a teacher for 35 years. There's so many great things about her being in a program called Guiding Light, because I think she was a guiding light for the people in her community. And she really lifted up poor Black children. She connected Black and white people in ways that, you know, no one else was doing at that time. And her own work was inspired by light, you know, that she, you know, with her, you know, severe pain and at this time of like great creativity, having to come up against that, you know, her aging body and that crippling arthritis, and seeing that light coming in the window, giving her this inspiration to create work that is so unique and so signature, that doesn't look like anyone else's work. So my mission, and all of us on the team, is that her name is as known as many of the famous American artists that we have, like Georgia O'Keeffe or Jackson Pollock. I think she should be in the canon of abstract artists, and I hope that this film and the traveling exhibition helped to do that. And she brought us all together, like you said.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't agree more. It was a fantastic achievement, and I loved it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next film is Savage Love, and we've got two of the filmmakers here tonight. First of all, I'm going to ask Gisela. This is a great, and I found, really comedic and heartwarming film. Why did you decide to choose this subject, so difficult, and make it lovely?
I wanted to write a love story, not the traditional kind, but it's about a married couple, and they have lost their way. And I lost my way as well after a minute. And then I contacted Claire, who's the best writer I know. And together we decided to write this film. And also, I work part-time at the Vasa Museum. And Claire had just visited Sweden, Stockholm, and the museum. And we also thought we wanted to bring in the ship that's nearly 400 years old, and it's still standing. And to put that in contrast with this couple struggling, you know, to see the light, and how they get to see the light in the end.
I thought it was absolutely hilarious. So well done with that. And Claire, I'm going to come to you. When it came to the counsellor, psychologist, and her very funny little conversation off screen, in direct contrast to what was happening with the couple on screen. How did that come to you?
It was very much a joint effort. Like Gisela had sort of outlined the story, and she wanted to have this couple going to kind of marriage therapy, and we thought it would be funny to have this very young woman, almost like a younger than their daughter, you know. And then it just kind of evolved from that, and that they're sitting there in this room and that they're hearing this sort of innocence, if you like, and sort of romantic love, and then she comes in and she's trying to get them to connect as well. So that was kind of how it evolved, and it just got. We thought it'd be funny to have them sniping each other and having a bit of comedy in the room as well to kind of relieve the tension, I think.
Well, it worked. It's definitely worked, and I also loved that. You know, I think that dawning when the husband was giving all these facts about the Vasa, and also there's other historical facts, you could see the wife looking as if to say, oh, I'd forgotten he was that fabulous. So it was a delightful way to have a love story, a rekindled love story, in fact. So it's great. So sending it out into the world, either of you can answer. What's your hope for your lovely film?
I think, just to say what Jeanette had said, it's, if you can be anything, be kind. It's sometimes as couples you stop being kind to each other, and it was about finding that kindness, which kind of allowed them then to rekindle their love. It came from kindness, I think.
Which is a lovely, lovely way to end this little Q&A on it, and well done. It was a delight. It was a lovely, lovely, warm film. So we're going to The Leaving Party next. So I'd like to welcome Millie Garnier and Emily Bray to tell us a little bit about The Leaving Party and why you chose such a deep subject.
Yeah, so the Leaving Party was born out of an initiative run by Bumble, the dating app, and they were doing a grant for female filmmakers, and they had to be, majority female cast, crew, and focus on a kind of female protagonist. And I guess maybe a bit weirdly for kind of a group of girls in their 20s, rather than telling a story that was sort of familiar to us, our mind immediately went to a sort of older protagonist in this sort of dystopian world where anyone who reaches the age of 80 is dispatched by the government because of, like strains on resources and things like that. So it is a sort of very black comedy, but we wanted to create this character of Joy who is, nearing her 80th birthday, and she's not just going to sit back and take it. She's a real kind of force of nature who is kind of escaping from this regime. And it was kind of, the idea came from us thinking that generally in film, older women are, once they've kind of hit their romantic peak in their sort of 30s, then they are often sort of ridiculous stereotypes, or, they're not given kind of exciting, cool roles. So we wanted to create one for Joy, and that's why she is such a badass. She's who we all want to be when we get to that age. So that's kind of where it came from.
Oh, thank you. Definitely it is. I'm practicing. I'm just practicing at the moment. I'm going to be that much of a badass when I get to 80, I'm telling you now. One of the things I loved about the film particularly was the glee with which her friends, lead characters' friends, kind of helped her with her absolutely reprobate plan. Really, did you find that when they were working together, did they respond to that naughtiness?
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely a feeling amongst the cast that this was something that to have fun with, mainly led by our lead actress, who is a woman called Caro, who is exactly as you see her on screen. She is so full of life and so full of energy. She is the character. We'd written this character, and she, without sort of needing to read the script, was her. And I think it really solidified in our mind that this is exactly why we were making this film, because people like Caro are about and are full of energy and full of life and full of joy. And I think that sort of energy really sort of came out on everybody who came across her. I mean, she in between takes she was busy sort of dancing the floss to keep everybody entertained and things like that. And it was just a lot of fun, and everybody sort of kept the energy up all the way through, led by our 85-year-old lead actress. Sort of this case in point, really.
Phenomenal. I loved it. And the shock at the beginning, did you tell the cast that was going to happen, or did you just, because everybody reacted just on point, and it's such a shocking start to any film. It's beautifully acted and choreographed.
We had a long chat before, just to be like, this is what's going to happen, this is why it's happening, and people did get on board with it. I think some people found it very emotional as well, because when you spend obviously a lot of time building up to a scene like that, you really feel it. Sort of as a team, sort of had a long chat about whether we should keep it in or whether it was something that should come out.
Yeah, we were worried it might be a bit too aggressive, but the idea was that it would sort of lull into being like a birthday party is what it is and what you think it is, and that's a very happy occasion usually, but then that sort of, quite shocking moment comes, which is sort of what we wanted. So yeah,
and I think it worked really well. Certainly for me it worked really well, and it also really shows that for all this looks light and fun, and there is all this sort of naughtiness and subversiveness going on, actually it's really dark outside. You know, for all that people are doing and having a leaving party, it's really dark. It's absolutely horrific to think of what is happening. So I think 10 out of 10 for getting that shock after such a lovely, gentle, how sweet is this beginning. So well done, everybody. That's absolutely fantastic. So thank you, all of you, for all your contributions here and the film itself. So before we leave, if you could give us a little wave and say goodbye or hey door, then that would all be very lovely.
Bye.
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 Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.